Good morning to all my friends and family, and welcome to this episode of Jim's 5am Club. It's Tuesday morning, another cracker day by the looks of it. There's a gentle breeze just coming through the harbour. It's still dark, and we look forward to yet another day. And I look forward to getting through yet another book summary, a book summary that allows us to share a journey together, to learn, to grow, to develop, and to pick up, to capture some life hacks that hopefully we can use along the way to improve the perspective that we have in life, and to take OPE, other people's experiences, and selectively, intentionally use that OPE to broaden our perspective and to allow us to compare, to contrast, to baseline, to benchmark our knowledge, our experiences, and our slithers of reality. Because at the end of the day, we all live very, very unique and different lives. We've all had a different past. Doesn't matter if you're an identical twin, we all are going to experience a different life, a different past, a different present. I am here, you are somewhere else. You could be in a different time and space to where I am at the moment. And most certainly of all, we're all going to experience a different future. So today we're going to go on a journey, as I mentioned, and we're going to go through a book summary entitled The Art of Community by an author named Charles Vogl. The Art of Community, where we take a deep dive on what community is and how community can bring meaning to our lives, can introduce and enhance a sense of belonging and be good for our physical health and our mental health as well. So a sense of community is something, I guess, that as humans we all crave, and we're all wired to be connected together. So where does this author go with this? He kicks off with a beautiful quote, a profound quote, where he says, "The true measure of a community's success is not the size of its membership, but the depth of its relationship and the strength of its shared purpose." My understanding of the word community is that the word community comes from the word commune, to be in communion, together and with God. So the word community, from my perspective, is a lot deeper to the community that other people talk about and espouse, because as we're saying, originally the word community comes from the concept that people are bound together through Holy Communion, koinonia, communion, where we approach the chalice and we take in the body and the blood of Jesus and become one with God. And within the Greek Orthodox faith, not only do the living commune, but there is also an element of the ones who have passed can also be in communion with God, be one with God, and also be in communion with the living people of the parish. And what happens is that particles from the holy bread, the offering, are taken and are included in the chalice, and by including those names of the remembered, they are deemed to be in communion with God, to be one with God, as well as for those who step up and take Holy Communion are one with God as well. So it's important to understand that community is a social construct which is very complex, very powerful, and very useful, as I said before, to not only our mental health, our physical health, but also our spiritual health and our sense of being. So the author here talks about how we need to cultivate the relationships within a community and facilitate bonding, the bonding together of the members. And as I alluded to before, within a Christian community, within the Christian context, the super glue, the magic glue that bonds people together in a community is God. So a lot of people are not aware of that. A lot of people live in groups or live in tribes or live in nations or countries, or they can use different names, but those names don't mean community from a Christian or from a religious perspective. But as I say, the goal of Jim's 5am Club is to delve a little deeper into some of these social constructs, some of these concepts, some of these ideas, in order to get and gain a broader perspective, a healthy perspective, so that when we use words to describe experiences, to describe the slithers of reality that we're experiencing, then we can appreciate it a little bit better, because it's a little clearer, it's a little better nuanced, so we are able to, I guess, experience it to a different level. Because at the end of the day, as I mentioned before, we are wired for connection. Humans are wired for community, and we crave a sense of belonging. We are social creatures. I'm not saying that all people crave belonging and all people sense or crave a sense of belonging, a sense of connection, but by far the majority do. And yet there are some who, because they can't achieve it in their life, push community away, push groups away, push connection away, and become very individualized and steer clear and become isolated, which is quite sad, because it is quite debilitating physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, because we need each other. We are different from each other, no doubt, but the reason that God made us different from each other is so that we can be different for each other, so that we can take our differences, we can take the gifts, the God gifts that we have been presented with, and use those to complement and supplement each other's lives, so that 1 + 1 equals more than 2, so that we can leverage those gifts and yoke them together with other people's gifts and get greater leverage, greater productivity. So people in a community are defined as being two or more that care for each other's welfare. So the reason why we came together as groups in the primitive days was to protect each other, to hunt, to gather, to protect each other from other tribes, to protect ourselves from the wild animals, and to use each other, as I said, so that we could at least survive one day longer and enjoy God's creation. So a community is basically made of two or more people who care for each other's welfare, and we're part of a larger group, a larger tribe, and to be with people who understand us, to be with people that basically get us without us having to explain ourselves, I guess is the best way of saying it. But to also understand that a community is very different from a group, and I've explained that before, how and why that comes about, and not to be deluded to think that because you're part of some rainbow group that it's a community, because as I mentioned before, being part of a community is something which is a little bit deeper, something that requires God to be the centre of rather than man to be the centre of. And we also need to know that we're living today in an ever-changing world, a world that is changing more rapidly than at any time in the past, any time in the history of man. So it's even more important now to be part of a community, because the dynamics of the world are changing, and we need each other to be able to make sense of what these changes are and how these changes affect ourselves, our children, grandchildren, and future generations, as well as to protect the memories, to protect the honour of all of those good people who have gone before us, because the lessons that have been passed to us, the customs, the traditions, are time-tested. They've been tested in the furnace of time, where only strong, clear, useful skills continue to operate, and they continue to operate to protect us, to protect our children, and to make sure that we don't make silly mistakes that could impact the flavour, the colour, the outcomes of our futures, and to ensure at the end of the day, from a Christian perspective, that we all get to heaven, that we all get to the destination that we're intended to get to, and not to get lost along the way, not to meander off course, not to get sucked into the lifestyle choices that take us away from God, that lead us further into ourselves, into our selfish selves, and to make sure that we set a benchmark, we set a standard for others to measure themselves by, and to bring relevance to what we do, to what the world is like, and to make sure that we have the perspective that allows us to continue to express ourselves in a productive and a purposeful and meaningful way. So we live in a dynamic world, and we need to maintain a catalogue of shared values, and we need these values to stay relevant in a changing world. As my mother said when I was a young boy, she said, we are giving you all of these treasures, we're giving you a treasury of values, of shared values, and by all means, take what we've given you, use them, but don't swap them out with other people's values, unless, of course, those other values serve you and are better for you. Abby! So, in a world where we're encouraged to be open-minded, the risk is that an open mind, your open mind, if left without guard, can end up becoming the rubbish tip for everybody else's stupid ideas. Once again, we need to make sure that what we do in life serves us, serves our family, and puts family first, puts God first, puts our community first, rather than our own selfish interests. So be careful of having the so-called open mind, open lifestyle, because what it can do is it can lead you to a place of no return. So the author talks here about the importance of asking oneself some important questions in terms of their community involvement and where they're heading in their lives. And the first question is, who am I? How should I act, and what do I believe? And these questions can be helped answered by being part, as we said, of a community, because a community is like a mirror. It's like a reflector, and it reflects back to you the shared values of the community, and you get to see whether or not those shared values that the community holds are indeed the things that you also value, that you also hold true and dear to your heart. You get to benchmark, you get to baseline, you get to compare and contrast your slithers of reality and how you see life to how the others in your community see life as well, and then you can make adjustments. So shared values are important, as the author says. You need to protect them, you need to have a generous instinct, and you don't need to explain yourself to be part of a community. But there are a few elements of a community that make it strong and make it well defined. So these elements that the author talks about are the fact that a community needs a boundary. It needs a line between the members and the outsiders. A community is a safe space. You can't open up a community to all and sundry, because, as I said before, by having an open border, by having an open mind, what happens is you get people pushing, foisting their rubbish, their stupid ideas onto others and damaging the fabric of the community for their own selfish indulgences and own selfish desires. A community needs a boundary. It also needs some sort of initiation where a new member becomes actively included. and it usually requires some sort of ritual or some sort of token receipt that they get to be part of a Christian community. The initiation is the baptism and the chrismation. It's a ritual, and the token that you receive is a holy cross that you can wear. You receive the holy chrism. The Holy Spirit descends upon the new member, and the new member can become a full participant in that community regardless of their age. Communities also require rituals, things done that have deep meaning. Things such as just silently eating together, or silently being together, or being in the same place, same time and space, and just following diligently and obediently is in and of itself a very, very powerful human sort of instinctive thing to do, and brings people together and unites people. A community also needs a temple, a place set aside, a sacred place where people can congregate, people can come to, and they know that that place is specific to the community. Hence, Christians have their churches. Another important part of a community is the stories. There needs to be shared stories that enable people to easily understand the values, the facts, the emotion, the ideology. Within a Greek Orthodox church, there are icons, colourful icons, that express the faith in easy to understand, easy to see, easy to interpret ways. And within those icons, within those images, there are also hidden clues and hidden messages. There is a layering of messaging to enable people to grow and develop and to understand things deeper as they move through the different phases of their growth. There are also symbols that need to be part of a community, the things that represent ideas and values, just like the icon, just like the cross. A Greek Orthodox church, for example, is a multi-sensory experience. You hear things through chanting, you see things, there is colour, there is smell through the incense, there is the feeling, there's the silence, the isolation, the glorification of God, and it is a multi-sensual experience that takes in all of the senses that God has given us in order to express our love and to receive God's love. And there are also inner rings that we require to be part of a community, because we all need paths of growth, where a person can become a visitor and move to a novice, an elder, and then a master within a particular religion. So as we can see, there is a formula for community, and this formula has stood, as we said, the test of time. I look back upon my history. For as far as I know, Greece and Greeks have always been people of deep religious faith. There has always been at the centre of Greekness deities, and these days a deity in terms of God, the one God made up of the Father, the Son and the Holy Spirit. There has never been a moment in the history of Greek history where Greeks have not been deeply religious and lived in communities They haven't lived in tribes, they may have lived in villages, but all of these villages had at their centre the church, had at their centre God. Each family had at its centre Jesus. So the church has formed an important and an integral part of the Greek nation, and been the centre of family. Anyway, I think I'll leave it there for today. So the great thing about community is it creates a sense of stability, certainty, connection, trust, appreciation, and as we said, even the ritual silence is a very powerful thing, where nothing needs to be said, nothing more needs to be said, and you just need to be, let alone, to do. But as we said, to be a great Christian, to be a good Christian, to be a practicing Christian, it's not only about glorifying God, but it's loving one another as you love yourself, and to be generous in what you do, how you do it, and to spread the goodness, spread the values, those shared values that you have and you share with your community, and to share it with all of mankind. Anyway, take care everybody, have a good rest of the day, and ciao for now.